Hello and welcome to Beyond Convention. I'm Dee Scown and today I want to talk to you about simplifying your life with minimalism. I'm going to introduce you to a concept which is referred to as the Swedish death cleanse, and its proper name is Decluttering. Now this is a webinar I've done for a number of people, so I'll cut to that in a little minute. At the moment, I want you to recognise that this is a journey. You don't have to flip your life immediately. But as we get older, we need to start clearing the mess out. And this is how to do that and why it helps for you and your family later. So let's cut to Decluttering, how to declutter your life. Yes, I'll share my screen straight away. So has anyone heard of Decluttering? Yes, a few arms going up. So it's called the Swedish death cleanse. And I think I came across it because after cleaning out a couple of households, I just was talking about that kind of stuff and it came up in my feeds. So it's actually a skill that we're supposed to turn to at around the age of 40. And I think most of us, and certainly I have, well missed that target. So the concept of that comes out of accumulating for the first 40 years and then starting to downsize for the next 40. So probably best if I tell you a story. So you can see this lady in the picture. Her posture is pretty awful. Well, that's what one of my relatives looks like. And she's in her 70s, so it's sad that she looks that way. She married young to a local farmer from the same town. They bought a home in that same town. She had 3 wonderful children, produced those, raised them, and they now have children of their own. The father-in-law who owned the farm, very close by, was a hoarder of machinery and farming bits. If any of you come from rural background or even just driven through the country, you often see farms with piles and piles of metal. And things might come in handy one day to add to a piece of equipment, to fix a piece of equipment. So, and they all thought, well, that's okay, because he'll sort it out later. Only he didn't. So it seems that hubby was hoarding as well, but he was hiding it at the farm. So that's okay. He promises to fix it up and sort it out. He'll get to it later. Only he doesn't. So on top of that, you've got a lovely lady with kids who's been running businesses from home and has large leftover business stock and equipment and stuff like that from sewing and dressmaking. So there's a house full of gear as well. So they're busy with their lives all the time, and then comes age and illness. So life gets in the way, and the kids who've grown up now, moved on, they've left all their stuff behind, their toys, their books, lots of other things. You've got all the other gear left behind. Work, business, it's all piled onto women in particular, and women live longer usually too. So what are people like us up against at the end of this time? Often we're cleaning up after somebody else. So, and we've got all our own stuff. Now, who here's got retro crockery or Tupperware left in the cupboards that they never use? I know I have. What about crystal, glass, brass collections? That was my mother's favourite. So yeah, the detritus just builds up, and that's natural. That's what we do over life. And sadly, what's happening is the kids don't want the stuff. They don't want the silverware. They don't want the knickknacks. They don't want the figurines. They certainly don't want the china, especially if it's got any silver or gold on it. They don't want lace doilies. They don't want the cabinets. They don't want the really old computers because they don't work anymore. They don't want your peripherals. They don't want mattresses. Nobody wants those, sorry. It's just a bit of a disaster. So what we end up with is this history of we meet our partners, we start a journey, we build a home, we dress the home, we have the kids, you have all the special things you do with the kids, you grow your family, and then later the grown children leave. And what's left for you is a huge pile, but when illness or divorce or something like that comes along, there's a massive load left behind. So look at her. The scenario she's living at the moment looks like it's weighing her down and she's carrying it all on her back. It's cruel, in a sense, that the men in this particular scenario have left so much behind, but she too has a large amount. 6-bedroom home, 3 living areas. It's massive. So who's going to help her? Well, we are luckily in this situation, but some people don't look at the situation early enough and they've left it to young people. And their stuff will end up in landfill. So I look at the task ahead of this family, and personally, I vow not to leave behind such a mess. I don't know whether you have space in your home that's like the junk room or the junk drawer. I think everyone's got a junk drawer. I think I've got 2 junk rooms. So do what I say, not what I'm doing at this stage of the game. So, and have you ever had to clean up somebody else's mess yet? Have you cleaned up after your parents, an aunt, an uncle, something like that? We've had to do 3 big cleanups in the last probably 5 years. We're both in our 60s and my husband's not well. So, and now we're going to have to help this other member of our family as well. So it's been our decision to go, hang on a sec, we need to get rid of our stuff while we're getting rid of everyone else's. Excuse me. So if you're watching this webinar, you're already thinking about it and recognising that you need to do something, aren't you? Some responses. Let's consider some questions to get you thinking about it. If you suddenly had unexpected guests, how easy would it be for you to set up the guest room? Any thoughts?
I can answer that.
Yes.
Yeah, we have 2 guest rooms. One has just been turned into my dedicated craft room, and the other one can be at short notice put into a state for visitors. My husband rolls out his photographic gear in there, but at short notice, and he's done that on numerous occasions, he can get order in there. So our guests can actually have that as a room.
That's great, because some people really can't. So another one, if your accountant called and asked for a particular document, how quickly are you able to put your hands on it?
Yep.
So most of you are probably business women, I'm thinking. So you're probably fairly efficient at that. Mm-hmm. But a lot of people wouldn't know which lot of boxes to look in. So, or if they have to go into the roof or attic or basement. If you became unwell suddenly, would others be able to find your data, your passwords, and the important documents? Data and passwords is a big one these days, because you need to shut down communication or at least circumvent communication. So if you haven't got a way of quickly locating that and having access for somebody else, you really need to think about that one too. And if you needed to travel for an emergency, how quickly could you find the clothing, the suitcases, all the packing items you need to get out of the house quickly? I just want you to think about these things. And lastly, if an item broke and you wanted to repair it, how quickly could you find the tools you need? Do you have a dedicated space? Do you have stuff scattered all around the house? So possessions need to be kept clean. Some need to be insured. They need care and protection if they're not to degrade. So managing and maintaining our belongings can drain our energy and focus. So it's important that we have some kind of systems built into each part of our life to look after that. It reduces stress, which is the main thing. So the possessions are a burden. I know a lot of people that might be, new to them or something like that. But often once you've gotten rid of things, there's a sense of relief, and too many possessions do become a burden. They've got to be looked after. As we age, and I know I struggle, we're in a large house here, it's like you've got to keep the place clean, but it's so big, and then when you're trying to do other things, and if your health fails, it's a huge struggle, and it just means things get lost in the mess anyway. So there's a shift in values in our younger generation, and they're prioritising experiences over possessions. You'll see this in the media. Many of them can't afford homes, so they're choosing to create memories instead. Digitally, that can be saved. The things don't necessarily make us as happy as we think they do. So do you need 15 handbags, or do you just need maybe 2 good ones in two different colours? It's thinking like that and paring down the systems that you've already got there, to make life clearer for yourself. These young people, they don't want our stuff. They want memories, they want experiences, and freedom from the burden of excess. I don't know where you are living. I'm in South Australia. Houses are getting a lot smaller. They might have more living areas, but the storage is a lot smaller. So they don't need as much. So they're not going to want all those things that we have acquired from both our grandparents, our parents, and then we're, adding to it and passing it on. It's all too much of a burden. So the other thing to think about is, how we have larks and owls? Has anyone heard about that? The larks get up early, the owls stay up late, and we always marry the one that's the opposite to us. So, well, it's the same with hoarders and chuckers. So bowerbirds and woodchucks, you always marry the opposite. So if you're not the hoarder, or if you're a part-time hoarder, you may find that your partner is a hoarder. And you're not necessarily going to be able to change what they've done and what they're doing. But if you can minimize your contribution to it, that can make a difference in the long run. So are you the person with all the pretty things all everywhere, or are you the one that's pared down and got clear surfaces? So where's the balance that we need to find? So my hoarder husband has created things out of his hoard that have helped me out. So that saved us money. It's been useful. And we can't really complain about it in one sense, but I have said it can't be visible from the house. I'm on 9 acres, so it has to be down the back driveway. If I can see it from the front windows, I don't want to know about it. But at some point, we are going to have to deal with that too. And it's the same thing, his family member is facing, is these huge piles of farming equipment and stuff. So growth and compromise come from communication. So you need to pick your times to do this. So if you are dealing with someone else who's the hoarder, we can learn from each other. Hoarders can appreciate the value of letting go once the minimalists provide them with some of the tools that they need. So, and for individuals, if you're on your own, which one are you? Are you the bowerbird or are you the woodchuck? You're probably already doing this a bit. Boarders, hold onto your seats because you're going to have one heck of a ride ahead of you. So Decluttering actually stands for Swedish death cleanse. So the idea is that you prepare for your eventual passing. So it can sound a little not nice, but it's just death cleansing is probably the most important word. This practice lightens our load. It makes our lives easier to start with, but it makes ours and other people's lives much easier later. So there's some great books out there. So books, but also we've got Australian Peter Walsh. I don't know whether any of you have seen his programs. He's great at helping people offload, and it's good to watch his programs because you recognise in the program where you might be hoarding things if you watch enough of them. And yeah, it's interesting to see the results afterwards, how people are much freer and they're able to have much cleaner environment because they've gotten rid of so much of their gear. So, and let's give our loved ones the gift of a clutter-free situation when we are either downsizing or passing. It's, yes. So while you're doing that, bring the mob in. So get ready to take photos if you're going to start doing this. Have a method to store stuff digitally and be sparing with that too. So, you know, we've got a culture where we take photos of absolutely everything and we do need to be deleting most of those. But do you need to have the mother's 25th wedding anniversary gift that nobody else is going to care about? Or can you perhaps sell that or give it to somebody and keep a photo of it? And that's what I've done with my mother's stuff. She had some beautiful things, but the reality is I didn't have the space to keep them. I don't have the time to go through and dust every little knick-knack every week like she used to. I needed to clear the decks. I've kept some things, some small things, but a lot of it, if you've got a photo, you've still got a representation, you've still got a memory key to bring up those memories for you. So then bring in the mob. Bring in, that's what we call family is the mob. Bring them in, share the things. I'm aware that Faith has done this with her family. They've gotten together and, yes, talked about how things are going to happen, who's getting what, or if there's special things that people want, for them to either take it now or put the name on it, on the back of it. You don't have to give the stuff away now. You can just put a tag on it and say this belongs to, and keep it in your home until you're ready to move on. So you don't have to empty the walls and the cupboards immediately. And if it's all too much, break it down. So you just break it down into rooms, steps, whatever you're going to do. I saw a story recently about a guy who was very overweight and his doctor said, go to the gym. And of course, people that are really overweight struggle at the gym. They haven't probably been there, they don't know how to use the stuff. It's embarrassing, it's scary. And instead of saying to her, if you've ever joined a gym and then said, oh, I'm going to go every week, you know, and then 3 weeks later you don't go again. What they said to him was, go to the gym, walk in the door, stand there for 2 minutes and go home. And do that until you get to a point where you can stand longer or you want to do something. And just do that small step. Go in and go on the walker for 5 minutes and then get off and go home. And just do that over and over until your courage and your understanding of things is larger. You can do this with your dostadning, right? If you've got a room full of boxes, pick one box. Go there. If it's really emotional for you, open the box up, look at it, walk away. Leave it open. Walk back in the next day, have a look at it. You might want to pick something up. It can be a really slow process if it's going to be a big emotional issue for you. So don't force yourself to throw everything out immediately or try and, do some massive job on a large home. It's not possible. If you can get a shelf cleared, if you can get a carton cleared, eventually that'll become a room. And then it's, the next room. So this doesn't have to be some massive, scary thing. You can take it at very small bites. So where do you go from here? There is an order that I kind of feel is easier, especially for women. So we start with garages and sheds. So here's someone looking at bike tyres. Are you still riding the push bike? Do you need spare tyres? I don't. I haven't ridden a push bike in years. There's so much stuff that we tend to shove out into sheds, out into garages, and then go, oh, it's there, but it's out of sight. So you don't approach it again a lot of the time. But so they're a good place to start. If something's been put out there and it hasn't been used for a couple of years, you probably don't need it. And someone else could probably benefit from it. So many times we put things out there that are broken and they're never going to get fixed. I think it was a bread maker and a food dryer that we came across a while back that we weren't going to fix the bread maker. Why did we keep it? So recognise those things that are unusable. Now, you'll also probably find boxes of kids' possessions out in a garage or shed. That's really common. It's time for them to pick them up. So they can, and if they don't want them, that's fine. They can take them to the rubbish. So put names on those boxes. And if there's something in there that's precious memory, a teddy bear that you remember giving them or something, once again, take some photos. So, and then the household stuff. So how many bunt tins are enough? Have you got, or cookie sheets? My sister-in-law used to cook a lot. She's got hundreds and hundreds of tins and cookie sheets, but she doesn't cook like that anymore. So she doesn't need them. So the household encompasses the kitchen, the laundry, and all those perceived useful objects. Spare flan dishes, that's what we had. And if you need one later, and this is something I haven't been used to, is, you can borrow one. People will lend you dishes if you really need them for an event. And we've probably come out of a fairly wealthy period in our lives and we bought what we needed, but let's share more instead. So I had collected coffee mugs. I'm not likely to have 18 to 20 people in at one time for a coffee anymore. It's just not going to happen. Probably COVID changed some of that, but we don't have dinner parties anymore. People don't entertain the way they used to, and certainly the younger generation don't. They all go out. And I don't know about you, but many of us do this as well. We go out to entertain, we go out to celebrate. So do we need all those things? I remember who had what was the box called when we were going to get married? We save up for. I can't think what it's called.
Glory
yes.
box.
That's it. Thank you. I had a glory box. And we had so much in there. Oh, yes, we were going to have a dinner party with 16 sit-down guests. I've never done that. And I had a glory box 50 years ago. So yes, there's all those sorts of things. So it's thinking about those, and you'll be able to go through this later if you want to break it down for yourself or put it in a different order. So, oh, sorry. Linen and clothing. Oh, missed one somewhere. Behind the picture of books, there's a picture of linen and clothing. Sorry. So that's another one. If the linen's starting to smell a bit musty, which it does when it gets older, just get rid of it. You can buy stuff fairly cheaply these days. Clothing, if it's larger sizes, promise yourself not to get back up there. If it's smaller sizes, maybe, but be realistic about where you're headed with your health and things like that. And if it's really out of fashion, just get rid of it. If you don't get rid of it, they're only going to throw it out later anyway. It's only going to end up in landfill regardless. So if you can find somewhere good for it to go, great. If you can't, then let it go. So books, media, and paperwork. Now, we covered the paperwork a little bit earlier, and I'll cover that in some bit more detail. I'm a book lover, so I've got probably 100 or 200, and I don't do the Marie Kondo 30 only. I think it was 30 only. Sorry, that's not happening, but that is my collection that I'm hanging on to. Yes, I'll pare it down later, but it's one that's important to me, and you need to keep what's important to you as well. You still want joy in your life. You still want those beautiful, special things that you love around you. So be discerning in this. They do collect dust and stuff like that, so hopefully you've got good storage for them. But yeah, hang on to the stuff that you really do love. Media, records, tapes, CDs. Everybody's got everything on the internet. Most people don't want them. Some people are collecting vinyl, audio tapes and CDs. No, they just go straight to the trash. And yes, it's our music and we love it. And I am still running a CD player in my car, so I'm very old-fashioned in that way. But at least it's newer than the real tape. Do you have the equipment required to play those things? I don't think we've got a proper CD player in the house. I've got one in the car because of the age of the car. But if you haven't got a record player, you don't need the records. You, could probably get some money if they're vinyl. If they're CDs, you probably don't need them. You're probably accessing them with Spotify or one of the other things. If you thought it was vitally important to keep a particular version rather than digital, then keep it. But once again, be discerning about how you move forward with the stuff that you're carrying. So now I call these tchotchkes. I think I got it off the Nanny Find program. Tchotchkes and furniture, ornaments, gifts. We used to always give elaborate gifts to people who got married. My mother had a crystal wedding and she had so much crystal, and I went through a charity shop recently and the stuff's not worth a thing. You can pick up crystal ware for $1 a piece, and I don't mean glass, I mean diamond cut crystal. So do you still want to be dusting it? I don't. Can you take some photos with a nice background and then pop it in the Goodwill? So ask the kids first, ask the family members first, do they have memories tied to those particular items? Or were they just display items? So often our culture has a lot of display items. It's about showing off wealth and stuff. And to be honest, I don't think anyone else is really interested in what you've got on display for a wealth concept. They're more interested in what they've got on display and hoping you have an interest in that. So, if it's something really precious, sit with it for a while. Take a photo, sit with it, And next is the furniture, the display cabinets, the old wooden display cabinets. Some of them are worth money, but the number of collectors out there is getting smaller and smaller. And they're heavy going when you have to move them. So if you can offload some heavy duty stuff early on, you're not going to have to be carrying it literally out the door later. So, and then to have more free space in your living space, because as we get older, we need movement supports, perhaps wheelchairs, walkers and things like that. Often we've filled our houses and there's only small walkways. I have a relative that had just about 1.5 foot, if you were lucky, to go down the passageways. It was so full of things. But when that person became unwell, they had to move out immediately, and it was just a massive emotional change because they had to suddenly leave all of their stuff. But it was because of all of their stuff that they had to leave. It wasn't safe for them to be in that house. So you want to eventually create an environment where it's easier to move around. And so, yeah, that you don't have to shove things out of the way or just tripping hazards as we get older. So it's a lot to think about. You can rotate your furniture around if you need to. So, and if you want to display a small amount of crockery that you're hanging on to, if you just want to limit your number of furniture items, rotate them out. Every 3 months, put a different display up. Makes your house more interesting, changes the colours, and you still get to see the things that you really, really are passionate about. Now, back to the paperwork. Your wills and other legals. It's really important that you prepare your family and yourself for this. You need to get your wills properly written. In Australia, you need to do an advanced care directive, possibly guardianship, and other authority forms. I suggest you get a lawyer, a family lawyer involved if you can afford it. That's what we did, and we did all of the forms together, made it a lot quicker. But things like your advanced care directive, a lot of people don't bother, but you may be placed somewhere you don't want to be. And I've just seen a neighbour of ours go into a home and she's terribly unhappy. And she's not allowed to have many plants or anything else. She's got hardly anything. And that just seems cruel to me. Whereas we did an advanced care directive for my mother before she passed, and I stipulated that she had to have a north-facing window with a garden, and she got it. Now, you may not always get those things that you want, but the thing is, if you don't ask for it in your paperwork, you definitely won't get it. You'll be slammed in the back room with barely a window. And if you want your life later to run smoothly and at least comfortably, put down those things that are important to you. My husband hates stand-up comedy, so when he's really naughty, for want of a better word, I tell him I'm going to park him in front of stand-up comedy in his advanced directive. So, but that usually keeps him in check. Look, this is all going to feel like a roller coaster. So, there's the wills and the testaments. So, this is going to feel like a roller coaster. So, at this point, you're probably just deciding and assessing and realizing how big this is. And then it gets like huge in your brain and it's overwhelmed. And you think, oh my goodness, but if you attack it the way I've said, we're just going for the smaller chunks first, that will subside into a more comfortable situation where you're in the process. And then you'll move on to the next stage, which will expand a little bit, but not as far as the first time. So, and as you move through the next one, then you slowly unburden yourself, and then you're able to step through and arrive at a more minimal existence. So Can't find my mouse. This is an example of a unit. This is a care unit. This has got its own kitchen, a little kitchen bench, chair and a sofa, a bed and a bathroom. So the circles actually signify rotation space for wheelchairs or other support uses. Could you move into something like that now? I couldn't. I'd need 6 of them. So how do we prepare to downsize to that small level that we may need to be in a much later date? And while it's not nice to think about having to downsize, if we prepare now, we're going to cope with it so much better and appreciate it for what it is in the end, rather than just being absolutely devastated by something that's had to happen to us after an event or illness or something like that. So go to the minimal, and that's the what minimalism's. They seem to say it's all about white, and you know that, and that would drive me nuts. But you can add bling with your other stuff. You can add bling with colour. So think minimalism, and then add back in some stuff that is light and doesn't, you know, doesn't literally weigh too much. Keep some art, keep some colour, and colour your spaces while still having it at the lower level of ownership. Oops. So that's our aim in the long run. This can take years, or depending on how old we are, it's going to have to take a lot less than years for me. But the Swedish people aim to start this at 40, and we're only learning about this in Australia in the last year or so, probably. So we're behind the 8 ball in one sense, but we've also got a lot of history we can look at from them to learn how to do this and how to make it the most pleasant journey possible, rather than a disastrous mess of everybody fighting over things. And yeah, there's the two extremes. You can make your process run smoothly, or you can ride the hill that some families are. Yeah, what do you want for your future? How are you going to move through this transition? Welcome back to the studio. I hope you enjoyed that. There's a lot to take in and a lot to think about. We've had a lot of things happen in the world around us. I'm sure that most of you have Tupperware, and we know that that's just gone broke. So if you've got good quality Tupperware that you use, then make sure you hang on to it. If you've got good quality Tupperware that you don't use, just wait for a little while, because that stuff's going to go up in value, I imagine. So make the opportunity to sell it. And with everything else, just potter. Maybe look at one room at a time, one cupboard at a time. Just think about it and take photos of stuff if it's precious. But you will find your life a lot lighter when your load is lighter. So you guys have a great week, and I'll catch you on the flip side.